Hello, welcome back for another episode of the Power First podcast. Today I'm talking to Josh Googans. He's the founder of a couple mushroom companies. He's a really cool guy. We are discussing the fate of the topsoils of the world. So if you're a person that thinks that eating food is important, this one's for you. Throughout listening to the episode, I did realize there's a little bit of mic knocking sounds. I did my best to remove it, but yeah, I know I'm mad about it too. Really sorry. Podcasting is hard. Please listen to the conversation anyways. It's a really good talk. Like and subscribe. Go check out Josh's stuff. Thanks for watching. Power first, baby. I love you. Let's go.
Anytime there's a minute shift in power from the people who are holding the power, a battle ensues.
Hello, what's up, Mr. Joshua Googans?
Up?
Welcome to the Power First podcast. Today we're talking about the global topsoil crisis, so that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a really uplifting topic for everyone.
Very uplifting.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, tell us about yourself, man. What's your deal? What do you do?
Fungal slurries, doing like compost teas on like small farms, and then growing all kinds of different types of mushrooms and commercially and recreationally, and uh, even not just mushrooms, but like fungus. So kombucha, brewing beer, distilling, and then kind of integrating that into agricultural systems. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do is dream up and like kind of obscure and very like I would say lofty plans to create companies or entities or groups that can help improve soil and I guess food sovereignty for not just me and my people, but like hopefully develop something that can be replicated in whatever scale people want to replicate that. And yeah,
So you're dreaming up fungal entities to create fungal slurries.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Perfect.
exactly.
The mycelial consciousness has replaced art in your life.
Yeah, it feels artistic, earthen building,
Totally.
but also like those being a place to produce fungal slurries
Uh-huh.
and do fungal research.
Always comes back to the fungal slurries.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good. So, you're in the agriculture industry, right?
Yeah.
Particular industry of mushroom farming is unorthodox because we aren't, the mushroom farmer isn't out there in the fields tending row crops of oyster mushrooms and harvesting them on big combines or anything like that, like stereotypical farming business type stuff. However, we are all part of the current iteration of human civilization, more or less, and so we are beholden, along with everyone else, to the fate of our agricultural soils, right? In the immortal words of Paul Harvey, despite all of our accomplishments, we owe our existence to a 6-inch layer of topsoil and the fact that it rains, right? So, topsoil is obviously very important for human civilization. And so, this brings us to the topic of today's episode. You may have seen on social media or, just throughout the years, kind of different ecological crisis like info pipelines, news/headlines, whatever that say that Earth only has a few dozen harvests left. And like on like the global, like the Earth's topsoils only have a few dozen harvests left, right? So that's the question that we're going to discuss today and dig into. It turns out it might be a little more complicated than that.
Yeah. That's a depressing thought. It's depressing to think that there's only a few harvests left in the topsoil. I mean, I guess a few dozen would be what, 50, something like that.
Yeah. So perfect segue, Josh. In 2015, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization boldly claimed that humanity's greatest ecological threat was not climate change or disease or pollution, microplastics, anything. It's actually soil degradation. And backing up these claims are some pretty unsettling statistics. 25 billion tons, or 29,640,000 acres of topsoil are lost every year. So wrap your peanut around that. And 25% of the Earth's topsoils are already seriously degraded. So therefore, according, this report came out in 2016. So at the time they were saying there's only 60 harvests of the world agricultural soils remain to our species. Mind you, yeah, that was 2015. So kind of reduce 10 or 11 years, I guess it's 2026 now. So did you have topsoil collapse on your, apocalypse bingo card?
I did not have topsoil collapse on my apocalypse bingo card when I was making those last week.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta keep up
Uh,
with it.
yeah, that's something that I need to add. But I can say that topsoil has been a huge focus. I think it is a growing focus now for more people, but like I don't think it's nearly as much as it could be. I like anything in capitalism, what's happening is people are trying to figure out, and I think I'm in that field of trying to figure out how to scale it, but I don't want to do it in a way that is as slowly as basically any product that someone's going to come out with is probably going to be coming out with or bought by like Monsanto. The people who have degraded the topsoil the most are likely going to be the people that fund the product that starts to revitalize it. And that may not be a bad thing,
Mhm.
other than that they are getting
Yeah,
fucking money for
for
doing
causing the problem.
both things.
Yeah.
But my view of all of that is that it just needs to get done. It doesn't fucking matter.
Mhm.
Money is imaginary. People are suffering from food crises, and like nobody should, the budget that it would cost to feed and clothe all people on the planet is spent by the military on a weekly or biweekly basis. And so what that says to me is that if the impetus is there, we can turn it around. It's really just a bureaucratic, oligarchic kind of issue, like most issues are. And I have full faith that the planet is going to be fine without us, but we need that topsoil. And so I also have full faith that we will be surprised by how fast it turns around if we actually put a bunch of effort into it.
Yeah, totally. And with everything, you're in the agriculture industry. I'm sure you've experienced this, in operations. Like with everything, capitalism has its own set of demands, and then like conservation has its own set of demands. And if you're a farmer that's just trying to keep the farm, alive and not get your ancestral farm taken by the bank or whatever, like you're always going to put the needs of capitalism over, just like, oh, maybe I shouldn't overly till or whatever the ecological considerations are. And a lot of farmers operating on such thin margins, like the system, unless there's a system there to protect, like that encourages those farmers to protect what they already have, like capitalism is just the ultimate extraction and destruction machine. So like if it just allowed to, so like, back to Monsanto, like if they're just allowed to run rampant, they'll just wait to the point where, oh, they've caused so much destruction that nobody can farm anymore, and then they'll engineer their own solution. So
I mean, there definitely is a solution. Like there's a shitload of solutions,
yeah.
and it really just comes down to allocating our waste, not making our waste non-digestible. Like, I mean, if our waste could be digestible, like everything in nature is, there is zero loss in nature.
Mhm.
There's loss from what we create,
Mhm.
and if we don't figure out how to get that manufactured better and decomposed from the old shit, we're always going to have this issue. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we do. If we keep doing that, it's just gonna continue to pile up and
Yeah.
not be any useful resource
Yeah,
to us.
as long as we maintain our current system of agriculture.
Yeah.
So yeah, that story, the whole concept of all of our soils running out in 50-ish years or whatever, kind of a lot to take in, especially when you have all these other, the poly crisis, they say, like climate change and, whatever, wars, all the plastic, all the ecological crises, I'm sure that everyone was dying to have another one put on top. And so, when this story came out, it made a big splash. It spun up quite a bit of discourse about how the soil crisis is like the new, kind of more unknown and neglected climate change kind of style eco crisis. Which, if you know anything about how our civilization's climate change mitigation policies were going at that time or are going now, that would be a pretty alarming prospect, right? Because it's like, well, we're not doing anything about that, and so like we're definitely not doing anything about the soils, right? So that, not necessarily super nutritious food for thought.
Yeah.
But before we dive too deep into the nitty gritty soil biddies of this discussion, we'll have to cover in broad strokes some soil science basics to make sure we're all on the same page. Now, this is an extremely basic overview because the planet is a highly geologically diverse place and there are many types of soils existing in many different contexts around the world. But in the simplest possible terms, soil consists of a few key ingredients. The bedrock is the lowest layer. Parent material, which is basically the bedrock at an intermediate stage of breaking down, so it's, smaller rocks but still big rocks. The subsoil, which tends to be a mineral-rich layer that is leached from the upper layers combined with the parent material, so where they kind of start to interface. The topsoil, which is the most biologically active area of the soil. It's the area that plants are grown in, the part that you walk on, etc. You're a soil guy. What's the most important part about topsoil, and why would it be at the risk of disappearing?
Yeah, I mean the most important part of topsoil from my perspective is organic matter and water. And that means microbes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the living element of the soil.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the digestion that occurs, like
Yeah.
because the soil is like an interface between the earth and the air, and like as those two things kind of digest each other,
Yeah.
that's the soil generation process.
Yep.
So the thing about topsoil is that it takes a long time to form. The formation of topsoil is like, any worthy pursuit in life. If you want to make or do something good, chances are it's going to take a long time to do it right. If you want to be this is a fucking stupid ass joke. If you want to be the liver king of soils and spend $15,000 a month on steroids, aka chemical fertilizers, your soils will possibly end up getting arrested trying to fight Joe Rogan. Hilarious joke. In fact, the formation of topsoil is so slow that on average, under natural soil formation processes, soil will increase in depth by only about 0.4 millimeters a year. Now, Josh, you seem like the kind of guy that would be familiar with something that's only 0.4 millimeters.
True. I have to mess around with that on a daily basis.
Yeah, because 0.4 millimeters is approximately the width of a human hair. So, a little vocab word for you.
What's it called?
Yeah, what's the creation of topsoil? The formation of topsoil called? Give you $5 if you guess it right.
Topsoil creation? Digestion?
Nailed it. It's pedogenesis.
No.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Pedogenesis is not the name of the upcoming book on the origins of Jeffrey Epstein. It is, in fact, or our president for that matter, it is, in fact, topsoil creation. So, the creation of fertile topsoil that is useful to humans is a painfully slow process. An inch of topsoil can take hundreds of years to form. And if you're somewhere with topsoil that is many inches thick, you're standing on thousands of years of geological process. That means that if you're somewhere with a topsoil that is 15 centimeters thick, that relatively thin layer took approximately 3,750 years to form. So think about that. In that not even 6-inch layer of topsoil are layers of soil that were formed during the Bronze Age, during Julius Caesar's reign, then during the birth of Jesus, the age of imperialism, the fall of the Third Reich, the rise and fall of national movie rental chain Blockbuster, so on. Really important moments in humanity.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest. Well, I think there's like one left. In like Alaska, I think.
Yeah. Throwback.
So what is so important about topsoil? Well, it's the most fertile, biologically active layer of the soil. It's a place where eons of geological and biological events converge into a fertile little cake of nutritious, bioavailable matter, teeming with life and the basic chemical elements required to grow nutritious food. Think about that. So it's pretty cool. We live on this planet that's made of rocks, and there's chemical processes and happening between the air and the water and the rocks that are just creating like the perfect fertile substrate for us to exist on and build a whole civilization. And when I met you, recently, and learning about your trajectory and everything, I understand that you started a mushroom company, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So in 2014 I lived in Maui, Hawaii, and soil formation out there is obviously a pretty recent geologic event. So it's a really cool place to garden and do fungal activities, for lack of a better term. And whether you're taking the fungal activities, it's pretty fun there too. or you're creating them in another way, because you can affect topsoil growth rapidly, by allowing the fungus to secrete its enzymes and acids that break down rock into soil. Like you've been saying, it normally takes thousands and thousands of years. But I started a company in Austin called Fallen Oak Mycology. I was going to call it Fallen Oak Mushrooms, but to me, the whole principle of growing mushrooms is not really just for food. It has to do with topsoil creation, because I didn't know all of these statistics, but I think it's just the most important obvious thing. So yeah, I started Fallen Oak Mycology for to create the mushroom substrate that other mushroom farms can grow mushrooms off of primarily. But now we do kind of everything. We do extracts, like you can see here. We do fresh mushrooms. We do dried mushroom. We do everything mushroom, and that has become kind of a commercial entity, and that's great. But I am more interested now in digging straight back down to the soil layer, because I at this point in my like tenure as a mycologist or even entrepreneur or whatever thought person when it comes to agriculture, I think that the 10 years that has gone by since I started Fallen Oak, and the 17 years of doing this, and imagining it, things have only gotten worse, but the awareness has gotten better. So I think that there needs to be more companies, whether it's a company in the capitalistic sense or if it's a group of people in under any kind of legal umbrella, that learns how to do this quickly. We have to be able to do this quickly. And I do feel that a concentrated effort on even just private plots of land will turn the tides of local weather patterns. And that will start to not only facilitate the growth of plants and topsoil in an exponential rate in those local areas, but I think that will then serve as an impetus to everybody else as the information starts to slowly get out about that, that they can just do that. They don't need to base their food prices and thus their family's well-being based off of the plight of big agriculture, because big agriculture is being squeezed, and it always has been being squeezed, just like that little soil layer. So once they start to realize that, like Carbon Cowboys, like all kinds of different people that are on Instagram right now talking about it, once they start to do that, their margins get better, food becomes more abundant, but the smaller people just need to do it on their own anyways, I believe. So I think that there's just stacks of layers that will create an exponential change that I wanted to be a part of by starting these companies. So there's Fallen Oak Mycology, and the newest company that I'm doing in Colorado is called Mycotex Biotech, and that has much more kind of pointed research around soil and biomaterials and stuff like that. Yeah.
Hell yeah, serial entrepreneur,
Yeah.
connecting all of the mycelial webs
Yeah.
via the consciousness. Do you
Indeed.
consider yourself a host of the mycelial consciousness? Do you feel like you've been captured by the mushroom spirit?
Yeah. While it may make me feel self-conscious to admit it, my thoughts are pervaded by
Don't be
fungal
self-conscious, man.
solutions.
Embrace this fungal solutions
Yeah. Yeah.
within.
Yeah. Although I don't really want to start more companies. I'm getting really sick
Of companies.
of being a person that
Yeah,
owns a company.
yeah.
I think I just kind of want to be a guy that like does cool shit,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously you need money in this society, so that's why you have to just call it a
Just
company.
start a company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll strike the balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe in you. So, all this talk of fungus, all these, the fungus obviously has a really important role in the soil biotic layer. And so that's a crucial function of the soil, right? To act as a host substrate for living beings. Topsoil is where the highest amount of biological activity is. It houses a ton of diversity in the form of plant life, insects, fungi, various types of worms, nematodes, bacteria of all stripes, etc., etc. There is an insane amount of biological activity happening in even a handful of healthy, thriving soil. And the benefits of topsoil don't stop at just having earth to grow our food in. Healthy functioning topsoil has very important atmospheric functions, also known as carbon sequestration. So, as we discussed, plants grow topsoil, and as we all learned in 6th grade science class, plants and such breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. Now, what happens to that extra carbon molecule and the CO2 that enters the body of the plant? It gets transformed into plant tissue or deposited into the soil in the form of sugars as the plant interacts with microbes, bacteria, or fungi that live in the soil. Once the plant dies, if the soil and the dead plant are left undisturbed, a lot of the carbon in the plant that the plant took into its body over the course of its life will, decompose and return to the soil. Over many, many years, the store of organic carbon that is stored in the ground becomes a major enriching element of the soil. As soil organic carbon content is often considered an indicator of its health and fertility. Do you know what the super metal name of the stable carbon pool of the soil is called?
Hell no.
It's the microbial necromass.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is pretty metal.
Yeah, it's the fucking microbial necromass, bro.
Yeah.
We've covered in the most basic way possible many of the various benefits that healthy topsoil affords to life on Earth. It grows food for us and other animals, it's habitat for a universe of tiny creatures as well as all the plants that call it home. It helps to regulate the chemical composure of our atmosphere. It catches water and allows it to filter back into the ground, etc. It's a literal alchemical substratum that turns the dust of the subterranean rocks into the living, breathing flesh of every person that you know. By some biogeochemical miracle of our very bodies via plants, and the animals that eat those plants have been synthesized from rocks that are deep underground. Do you think topsoil is magic, Josh?
Yeah. I mean, shit. I was just digging through a bunch of it. It was pretty beautiful.
Are you appreciating its layers?
I was appreciating her layers,
Mm.
and I was feeling a little bad that I was
Did you ask
potentially.
for permission first?
That's kind of what I was feeling bad about.
Mm.
I think that I gained its consent a while back, but I didn't recheck.
Okay. It's good to
today.
recheck for consent. It's one of the most important things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lessons.
Exactly. So, but I mean, in my heart, she knows that I'm here for a good reason. I think.
Good. Should let her know.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, remind her.
Yeah.
This is all well and good, but clearly, not all is hunky dory in the world of topsoil.
For me, what's going wrong is that the lack of moisture is a self-perpetuating issue. So the lack of moisture is similar to where I am in Colorado. It's wicking any moisture that does land up out of the soil. And so that reduces the biological activity, which further reduces the water retention capabilities of the soil, and that reduces the ability for life to grow and for carbon to be sequestered and pulled out of the air and put into the ground. So the very feedback loop that got it there is being undone because of a number of things. I think it's really that our activity by trying to use chemicals to fertilize is creating an atmosphere where the biology doesn't have its constituent ingredients that it needs to thrive, and we're trying to operate and have been operating as if that doesn't matter. And so we're just caught now at a point where we realize too late that we do really need that biology, but we're stuck in an economic system that waits for no one. And so we don't even have the time to let the soil rest, and we're just meanwhile popping out babies, and no one's got any time to take off work and make their own garden or whatever. So then we're super dependent on the food system that is then fucking up the rest of the soil that surrounds us and furthering the damage of our atmosphere, which is furthering the damage to the soil that we get all of our food from. We depend on it so heavily that, but we don't respect that we depend on it so heavily. And if we don't, we're going to see real fast why we should.
Yeah. It's almost like we have this super disembodied culture that has no respect for all of the riches that we were literally given for free and just have no desire to not destroy them at the fastest rate possible.
Yeah, we're just spoiled rich kids that had a big bank account
Yeah.
that we got given, and we didn't know what the value of that
Yeah,
was.
literally, we're spending it and going into debt as quickly as we possibly can, and just like drunk driving down the road.
I have a general theory for how to address the economic, for how to allow people to still compete in their economic system that I regret that I think everybody has to be in for whatever reason, but I would like to dip my toe out of as much as possible. I think that the best way to do this is to find crops that hit all areas. So really fast growing with little moisture that can be made into a commodity and that also revitalize the soil. Um,
Talking about hemp right now.
and I'm talking about hemp. Yeah. And because the previous point was that we needed biomaterials that are able to be degraded. One of the other aspects here is that
Yeah.
we're just constantly not. Oh, we have all this loss in our system.
Yeah.
Well, we need to put that loss back into play,
Mhm.
and so we need biomaterials. And so
Yeah.
hemp is the easiest and fastest growing thing that can be made into textiles, and all the textiles that we need that need to be bio based, and that grows really fast with little moisture. It retains moisture. It can be chopped and dropped to continue the process of microbial activity. And I believe that something like that, or hemp itself, is the only way that a cotton farmer or someone who has land just fucking sitting there not doing anything needs to be planting it. It's not that hard, you know. It just needs to be. I mean, or something like that just needs to be covering every surface. If we leave soil open to the air, it is a catastrophe. I mean, that is like every time I see that, now that I know it, it's just like gross. I
Yeah.
can't stand it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like watching a bunch of cars just running
Mhm.
right next to each other because
Yeah.
it's just carbon is just leaving.
Yep.
That took thousands of years to get in the soil.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. If you're anybody out there that's listening that has a garden, don't ever just leave it on. Don't leave the soil just uncovered and naked. Like that's just, yeah. Put some clothes on that thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is probably not a surprise to you or anybody listening, but our species, as we were just discussing, and the explosive growth of our civilization in the past 100, or so years, give or take, has put a serious strain on basically every common global resource. The oceans, forests, water resources, the atmosphere, etc., and topsoils, of course, are no exception. So, this brings us back to the question at the heart of the episode. Do we, as members of a human civilization, only have a few dozen harvests left? 50, give or take, we'll say. Is our global bank account of topsoil that is viable for agricultural cultivation about to be overdrawn? Well, let's look at some arguments for the case. Now, you don't have to be a soil scientist, as you were just saying, to look at recent human history, especially in this country and, broader region, especially in the kind of like Southwest area, to know that we have a pretty mixed record of soil management. That you're located in Texas, right? The Austin farms in Texas, Texas and surrounding states were at the heart of the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. The Dust Bowl was an extremely interesting period of time for a lot of different reasons, and part of what caused it was, indeed, naturally occurring storms and weather patterns, but that's also not really an excuse for the ecological devastation that occurred. In brief, the Dust Bowl, which basically turned all of the topsoils in parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado into an ecological wasteland, and that was caused by decades of agricultural mismanagement and a fundamental misunderstanding of weather patterns. It's called the Dust Bowl because millions of acres of topsoil were so thoroughly abused that it literally turned into dust. And during a period of years of extreme drought and windstorms, it all got whipped up into these violent dust storms that would bury entire farms, basically caused a whole regional economy to collapse, etc. These people at the time, they literally believed that I think the phrase was the rain follows the plow. They just thought that if they went somewhere and started farming, it would start raining. And so they're like, yeah, let's go to Lubbock, Texas or whatever, like just the flattest, dustiest, driest area, and then if we farm, then just rain will let's cut down all the trees, destroy everything that was here and then just start planting the shit out of it all and then it'll start raining because rain follows the plow. Makes sense, right? So, it's a hallmark case of people not understanding the holistically the ecological dynamics of the place that they are cultivating. And from this fundamental level of misunderstanding, making decades of poor decisions that lead to disastrous results. Sound familiar?
Mm.
In my opinion, if you're not cultivating topsoil that centers its long term health and viability as a part of the symbiotic relationship that you have with the soil, then you are literally just mining it for nutrients via plants. And like any mine, eventually you will completely sap it of all of its nutrients that you rely on, and you'll be left with a desecrated pile of dust. So, is this nightmarish past of the Dust Bowl just a glimpse into our future of global soil collapse? The great state of Iowa, along with a bunch of other Midwestern states, have some of the most fertile topsoil in the world, thanks to millennia of that topsoil existing as an open plain, covered in many different species of grass, buffalo, and other ruminant animals constantly churning through that biomass. Indigenous people were likely cultivating the soils as well. They weren't doing so on nearly the scale that, European descended culture, aka America, currently are cultivating. And so their impact on the topsoil was basically negligible, if not actually, generative, but that's a whole other discussion. For many thousands of years, this topsoil was allowed to slowly deepen and enrich itself. And when Europeans brought their agricultural practices to the region, they found some of the richest soil in the world. And then they stole it from the people that were cultivating it. Now, buckle up for this one. At the start of the 20th century, the average topsoil depth in Iowa was between 14 and 18 inches. And by the end of that very same century, the average depth was 6 to 8 inches of topsoil. That means in 100 years or less, 2,500 years of topsoil formation was lost.
That's incredibly depressing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one doesn't need to be a math genius to realize that something has gone horribly wrong here. For such a rare critical resource to disappear at such a horrifying rate in such a small period of time indicates a level of resource mismanagement that is nothing short of catastrophic. On the whole, the general figure is that cropland topsoils in the US are eroding 10 times faster than they can naturally form. So, what are the practices that are causing such unhinged levels of destruction? Well, that's actually a deep and controversial question that has a lot of serious philosophical implications. It is, at its root, truly, in my opinion, a cultural issue. But that's a discussion for a different episode. Because if we have this culture of the market rules everything, extract at all costs, growth at all costs, nothing else matters, then obviously, and that's the only framing that we have for literally the substrate of our entire civilization, aka the soil, which keeps us alive via food, then those two things they're not reconcilable. If you don't have a long term, if your civilization is not oriented on many generations survival into the future, which we are demonstrably not, in my opinion, then it's not going to turn out well for your children. So thanks, fucking boomers. In terms of the agricultural practices that cause topsoil erosion, a lot of it has to do with the outcomes of an ever-growing demand on an ever-shrinking area of land. In places like Texas, they are building cookie-cutter housing developments and industrial facilities as quickly as they can on viable farmland. Between 2017 and 2022, the county that Austin is located in lost 200 farms and 40 square miles of agricultural land. Additionally, as the cities grow, the farmland that feeds them grows further away, and the relative cost of getting food to the cities grows, while the number of months that a single acre of farmland is expected to feed increases. So it's just this feedback loop. And now, diesel costs $64 a gallon or whatever the fuck. And so that is just going to increase the cost of getting food to where it needs to go. And, it's almost like the cost of living crisis is built into the way that our economy operates as it builds, it just consumes more of common resources that we share together, drives away, things that literally feed us further far afield. And then, next thing you know, you're paying $18 for a dozen eggs or whatever, and that's all that there is to eat in the supermarket.
And you still got to go to work every day.
Yeah, and you still got to go work at the Labubu factory or whatever.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. One aspect of soil building, which does not seem related to soil building, is building structures and housing in an ecologically intelligent way. what I was just doing in Colorado is scraping. I want to put an earth chip for a shop for Mycotex. And Mycotex, for me, is a multi-layered research and development thing for agriculture. So the very place that I'll be doing the research, hopefully, is a place that itself can be replicated as a building that incorporates itself into the land rather than sits on top of it and essentially tries to dominate it. That's what earthships are really good with for. Earthships are really good at what Mike Reynolds calls encountering the land and the elements, meaning being essentially with them, and sequestering trash and things like that as well. But you don't necessarily have to use all those techniques to just build something that uses the earth intelligently and benefits from that through insulation of the earth, of the topsoil, and in this case, would be able to generate topsoil through it as a digester. So I removed the topsoil where it will sit and put it where the garden and its botanical cells will be. So adding more biological material, organic matter to the surrounding topsoil so that this structure can sit and digest liquids and things that I want to cultivate that then further assist the surrounding area of that. And if more people's homes did that, then they would literally be generating their own topsoil around them from their waste and their water usage and their home, and they would not be having to run the AC and further, whatever our electricity comes from, hydroelectric, stealing water from all over the place, redirecting it where it shouldn't be. Coal, more mining, and everything. Now that we talk about it, is the topsoil. Everything has to be that, and so if our buildings themselves can be made from hemp, which is improving the topsoil as hempcrete, and that is then created into an intelligent system that encounters the elements around it and further creates a positive feedback loop of soil building, then you can have housing developments just like that, and that's fine. But if we go and scrape the topsoil off and then leave it flat with a bunch of caliche that we mine from somewhere else, and then have those
plant St. Augustine grass on top of it and build the ugliest houses you've ever seen.
Yeah, and build really ugly ass houses that have carcinogenic materials in them
made
that
of
are
petrochemicals.
not insulated well, so that they just burn more energy in a hot, ever-growing, heated environment because of all the impervious cover. It's a absolutely
genius.
Idiotic feedback loop.
Yeah.
That only benefits the people who can cheaply whip these piece of shit houses together.
Yeah, it only benefits the private equity firms that are financing Heron's Way or whatever the ecosystem that they destroyed to build the fucking abominable housing development.
And then they'll have cleverly placed Native American names as the street roads, just to as an homage to the people that they completely fucked.
A subtle fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I genuinely think that it's a part of. It can be a piece of our legacy as a culture's turnaround to improve the soil as an apology for our culture's destruction of it. If we don't do that, I don't even think it's just to Native Americans. It's to soil itself.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Native Americans had a very good outlook on their part in the world, and that is that the earth is not something that they can trade. It isn't something that they can
be owned, commodified.
Yeah, that they can't commodify. So the very concept of a piece of paper saying, "Hey, I'll give you this piece of paper as a promise that I own this line and that line," is a cultural breakdown that has led to this issue. Because then now you can just have pieces of paper pay for a piece of paper, and now apparently you can do whatever you want with that soil, to the detriment of every other bit of surrounding soil and everybody else's economy.
Same goes for watersheds. It's like if you own one little piece and it just happens to be part upstream of all your other neighbors, you can just dam it and be like, sorry.
Yeah.
get fucked.
Yeah.
All the water's mine now. Literally nothing you can do about it because that's
Yeah.
how our system works. So that's
If you can gerrymander your way and cut up lines and pieces of paper like we just talked about all over the place to get your cultural outlook to be predominant in an area um, that favors people who SA the soil, there's no return from that. There is no return from that. Unless what it's doing is it's channeling people's creativity, like my ability to build a housing development. Mike Reynolds lost his architectural license because he started a housing development of earthships. They're giving the permission
yeah.
and the money-making possibilities and the resources to people who do destructive techniques. And so there really is not actually a good backstop, even with the EPA. They're just kind of, they have like fucking foam batons when it comes to this kind of thing. They're not really like doing anything.
They've been defanged by our alleged sexual predator and President Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Bringing up housing is that's obviously is a whole other discussion, but it is really interesting because it's one of those things that if you start to even chip away at the surface of how houses are built now, it's just like, it just blows your mind how just the complete race to the bottom of like common sense that they are built with. It's like they're not built for any real longevity. They're built using petrochemicals. I learned recently that one of the biggest sources of microplastics on Earth is from paint. So that's nice. Like every new cookie cutter house that's put up is painted with synthetic derived paints. So
got to keep a fresh coat of paint on that thing, or else you're a lazy bum.
Yeah, exactly.
St. Augustine grass, well cut.
Yeah, if you don't
throw
cut
that
your
shit
grass,
in the trash too.
Yeah.
Throw it in the landfill.
Yes, of course.
And then get a fresh coat of paint, or else
if you don't destroy all the native species living like within like a 10-acre radius of your house, you're a fucking degenerate.
Yeah.
And if your house is not coated in plastic, then you're literally homeless.
And if you haven't waxed your car and made sure that all of that weird ass chemical
waxed
that you've just sprayed all over your shit and just washed down the controlled flow of water from the water table so that it can go
directly into the stream.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're rolling coal through your neighborhood, you want those rims to shine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
good culture.
Yeah, it is. It's a great culture we have. So, in simple terms, the trajectory that we are on as a civilization is that the amount of people goes up, our sprawl footprint goes up, the amount of viable farmland goes down, right? As we just discussed. So, the land that is left to farmers is cultivated with increasing intensity, and consumer expectations and the never-ceasing demands of the market put an even greater degree of pressure on the already abused topsoil. As demand increases, farmland decreases. The amount of land that is able to be left fallow or unplanted for a period of time decreases because less total farmland is in rotation. So you can see the feedback loop that we're on here. The shrinking supply, in addition to short-sighted conventional farming practices, as we were discussing, are what is causing our topsoil to disappear. Chemically intensive monocrop agriculture kills the natural biodiversity of the soil, quite literally destroying the very thing that distinguishes soil from just dusty, lifeless dirt. Conventional agricultural practices like tilling on a massive scale are also majorly damaging to soils for reasons that are fairly obvious if you think about it. Living topsoil is essentially the skin of the earth, and as the geo-ecological dynamics that created our topsoils unfolded over millennia, the soils weren't being tilled and churned over and turned over on a massive scale on an annual basis. There are always disturbances, of course, like animals or fire or whatever, but the industrial scale tilling of the world's most fertile topsoils brutalizes the natural community of microbes that lives in the soil. Healthy topsoil did not evolve to be so heavily tilled with such regularity. You see, things like fungi and bacteria that live in abundance in healthy topsoils create chemical compounds that make soil stickier and stabilize organic matter and minerals that are crucial for healthy plants. Fungi play a seriously important role in that relationship as well, as their mycelial webs give structure to the soil that keeps it from washing away whenever there's a heavy rainstorm, for example. So, back to the basics of soils. The thing that differentiates healthy, thriving topsoil from crumbly dust is the biological community of the soil. This includes living and dead plants, bacteria, fungi, nematodes, etc. The topsoil takes a long time to form, and it is the biology of the soil that helps to maintain its structural integrity, literally to keep it from just blowing away. So then, if we're constantly nuking it with mega doses of chemicals and then dragging massive pieces of machinery across it to till it, then it's going to lose a lot of that structural integrity over time. Seems obvious. Or then when it rains or normal irrigation occurs or you get a crazy windstorm or that, that soil is going to begin to erode away. That's how you get results like losing 2,500 years of topsoil formation in less than 100 years. Nice one, guys.
So cool.
Good job, us.
Yeah, ignorance is pretty much the only reason that we find ourselves in the suffering situations that we find ourselves in. So I don't think it's enough to just say, "Oh, well, they were ignorant." I mean, cool. Well, correct it.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think about this often, like how divorced our national economy is and whole structure is from like the actual fundaments of the earth. Like if you think about any like product or anything, what distinguishes something as an actual valuable thing is if it has inherent value, right? Like, food, you can eat it, you survive, right? Like that's the basis of value. Or like trees have a level of value because you can turn them into your house or use them for firewood or something, right? That is the like natural bank account that we exist in the world is, just all the abundant resources that we just find for free around us, right? But our economy is so divorced from those the fundamentals of the actual abundance and living viability of the earth that but then the weird paradox of it is that in that period of time, that 100 years where we destroyed 2,500 years of topsoil, that was one of the craziest periods of wealth generation, like over any period of human history, right? So there is this, and so we just looked around and like, oh wow, we've got this, like you said, like crazy bank account. Like let's just start spending, take out loans on that shit, just do everything we possibly can to start exploiting it, leveraging it, and then we build all these systems. But at a certain point, we're just the rich kid that's drunk driving down the road that has just not looking at his bank account anymore, spending, taking out more loans, more and more and more loans, doing more spending, and now because we have at the top of our civilization this clan of AI death cult guys that are just trying to accelerate us into this AI future that they imagine for us and like building data centers in like Utah and shit where there's hardly any water to begin with because they are now end running basically in their minds like they've imagined this AI future for themselves and they are end running what we currently have, which is cosmically we won the lottery, right? But those guys don't give a shit about that. They're just trying to manifest whatever future that they see that they are going to get rich off of, and they're spending that bank account down faster than anybody, and that includes water, fresh air, all of those things. So I'm not trying to off topic us too much with the AI conversation, but it's just what I was thinking about this morning.
Yeah, I mean, I think like taking mushrooms can kind of reveal a lot of this stuff, which is what's interesting about fungus is it seems to be an inner communicative being that somehow speaks for itself through other organisms. And that is about as close to spiritual as you can get. And I think that that's what we are finding ourselves in need of is some type of leadership that has an anchor in a moralistic, greater self kind of feeling. Because if we don't act from that, then we're just going to see tons of hellish suffering around, which is that's a part of being a human and to some degree, and it always has been. But at the same time, not quite at the scale that we see right now. We have the opportunity through all this technology to have a complete fucking oasis right now. I mean, we could be living without any need for currency. Currency itself is like taking a second mortgage or a third or fourth or fifth mortgage out on soil, and soil is what we got the original things that we mint coins into. So we've removed ourselves from the inherent value of the planet, and we're seeing that economic collapse follow the ecological collapse. And if we don't start to have a moralistic or higher level outlook with our cultural direction, then I think we're just going to continue to see hellscapes over and over. We are. I personally believe that heaven and hell exists within the human mind, but we are so powerful beings that we can actually create whatever we want in front of us. and we're creating hell. As long as we continue to have leaders like that, we are not going to get anywhere. The only way that we can get somewhere, in my opinion, is if we directly generate our own value, similar to crypto mining, but we're doing that with soil. We can
The
crypto
original
mine.
crypto mining.
Yeah, the original crypto
Farming.
mining. And I'm not even super against crypto as much as, even though it's a even further removed value. But yeah, I think that the libertarian attitude of crypto, because you can get outside of the bounds of your local economy, is the way to that attitude is a way that we can approach land management, which is, this is my bank account and I don't want to need money. Money not spent is money earned, and if you don't need to spend so much money on your gas to go get groceries that are also expensive, because you can grow even 10%, 20%, 30% of your food, and then you trade that with someone else who is a badass chicken farmer or whatever. This is the way that humanity has always gone. And so if we can do that with the technology that we have right now, everyone can be abundantly rich, because one, they're not even spending anymore, like what they're spending 50% of the money that they would need to spend, and that just has a higher frequency lifestyle
It's
attached to
more
it.
generative.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, those are all good points. I had like 6 different things I was gonna say, but I forgot all of them. On the topic of like inherent value, the crypto conversation is really interesting, because I think that like that's kind of the perfect example of something to point to, that Bitcoin has value now because so many people hold it, right? And that's the value of Bitcoin, is everybody else's money sloshing around in the whole pool. But like Queef coin or whatever
I
has
love
no
that coin.
inherent. Yeah, that's what, is that your favorite coin?
Up
are you
until
are
now,
you
I was
are you a big
unaware of it.
are you a whale of Queef coin or not? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Queef coin whale.
Yeah, good. Buy more.
Yeah.
Queef coin doesn't have, there's no inherent value there. I think just the whole crypto thing, and I'm not trying to get too off topic, but just like goes to show how the extent to which, you remember all the crypto hype that happened in the past few years, like people are so divorced from the idea of like something having inherent value. It's all abstraction and disembodiment from that has translated into the financial system, but the financial system, generated all of its wealth from the natural abundance of the earth, right? But we've gotten now to this part of this place of such confused disembodiment that like you can get a bunch of rubes to buy Queef coin and then convince them that it has value for some reason, and then you just take all their money, and the only thing that had value the whole time was the money that you took from them, right? And there's a lot of things within our economy that operate that way. It's just longer timescales. You could argue that capitalism itself is a pyramid scheme. Because what do you do with a pyramid scheme? You take the money that people give you that are investing in, you give it to the shareholders that already have it, so they think that the stock's going up, but meanwhile you're just taking money from somebody else. There's no actual value that's being generated, right? Because at a certain point it's just a degenerative cycle that's going to collapse in on itself sooner or later. And I think that there's a compelling argument to be made that is what capitalism, our current mode of extractive capitalism, is. And soils, wouldn't you know it, are the perfect example. And also, of course, climate change is making soil erosion worse. Weather patterns have changed, causing more extreme swings in precipitation and drought. So one year you might have really dry soils, and then next year a ton of rain comes in and washes away all of your dusty topsoil. As we discussed earlier, in ideal conditions, soils can stably store atmospheric carbon for long periods of time underground. But when they're constantly being tilled and eroded away, that carbon is being released back into the atmosphere, and you've got yourself a good old classic feedback loop of global warming. Isn't that nice?
That's beautiful.
Isn't that good for everyone? And this isn't just a climate change issue. Have you heard the anecdote about how a carrot 50 years ago is less nutritious than a carrot today? Have you heard this? So I feel like you see it on like Maha influencers on Instagram and stuff, like panic posting about this. Well, it's difficult to prove if that's due to changes in the topsoil or changes in varieties of the crops grown, but it is certainly possible that abused topsoils are leaching their vital minerals that allow plants to synthesize literal dirt into actually deeply nutritious food. So I also read something recently. It is also a climate change issue, actually, because now, because there's so much carbon in the air, it's changing the way that plants, like that, just that they interact with the atmosphere. It's changing the way that they produce parts of their body, including seeds. So the example that was used was garbanzo beans. Like, it used to be that like rice and garbanzo beans would be like a pretty nutritious meal if you're some poor person in some part of the world with not a ton of food access. You could get a decent amount of nutrition from that. But now, thanks to there being so much carbon in the atmosphere, it changes the way that the plant metabolizes. It's making these beans less nutritious. So that's just
Super
another
cool.
another cool thing that assholes in LA will be able to buy themselves out of. But if you're some poor person in the Congo or something, it's probably not going to work out so well for you. Kind of like you said, the thing of saying that we can create heaven and hell in our own minds. We also are creating heaven and hell on earth. Like, that's literally how. That's also something just on the topic of wide scale discussions about capitalism. Capitalism, the way that exists, it is predicated on cheap labor in poor countries so that we in the rich countries can live super nice lives, and I can have a jackery here in the middle of a field. And so that dynamic is just going to increase, likely, as soil global systems destabilize. We've been living in this kind of like halcyon period of relative climatic stability. Those swings are going to get more extreme, and if you're poor and less able to just buy your way into a cozier condo or whatever, or like move somewhere else, or buy nutritional supplements for the food that is less nutritious, you're not going to end up as well. So yeah, we are now literally just creating heaven and hell on earth, and all of the AI accelerationist billionaire assholes just want to live in their like robo communist whatever perfect libertarian world, and everybody else will get to shovel their shit. So look forward to that.
The only way to reduce the impact on future generations or future selves that we may even be a part of is to slow down and stop panicking and just think about what's right in front of us. There is no sense in trying to swing either direction in my mind, whereas go say fuck it to everything. It's all just a free for all, so we might as well go burn, start burning shit ourselves for fun, or sit on the other side of self-righteousness and say that they're the problem, because we kind of have everything in our hands. Maybe that's where fungus for me is a incredibly inspiring tool and teacher, because it doesn't seem to discriminate against whether it's crawling on an asshole or a good person. It's going to create dirt out of that regardless of assholes and good people lie right next to each other when they're dead.
It's true. We all turn to the same dust.
Yeah. Hopefully good trees. I'll try and cultivate my life to the point where at least maybe I'll be some good topsoil.
Yeah, I think you look like you'd make good topsoil.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thanks.
So, yeah, we as a human civilization are catastrophically mismanaging the very substrata of our entire culture and civilization. Conventional agricultural practices view the soil mechanistically as a resource to be exploited rather than a living ecosystem to be stewarded. And the consequences for ourselves and our ecosystems are god-awful. So at last, this brings us to the question at hand. Are we really only 50 years away from the total topsoil collapse and global famine? What do you think? What do you think, Josh? Are we 50 years away?
I think that we could be right now, but that we will course correct.
It's good. It's hopeful.
Yeah.
Good. Power first. Well, as one learns when studying about the natural world, things rarely line up with such a clear-cut narrative. Simply put, soils are way too complicated, with far too much global variation in terms of management, geology, climate, and so forth, to be able to make any sort of uniform determination about their rapid decline. So kind of, comparing it to climate change is, like, the global climate is, obviously there's a lot of subsystems, but there is, we share one huge atmosphere, right? But soils there's a lot of variety. The soils here in Colorado are probably very different from soils in Thailand, right? And the way that they're managed, all that. So, yes. A 2020 study by Dr. Daniel Evans out of England put this narrative to the test. Taking samples from all over the world, they categorized the soils under 3 different types of soil management. That is bare soils, so soils that are just left uncultivated, conventionally managed, and conservationally managed soils. And they measured the actual rates of erosion versus thickening. In short, only 16% of the conventionally managed soils studied had a lifespan of less than 100 years, and 7% of sustainably managed soils had a lifespan of less than 100 years. According to the study, the median lifespan of thinning topsoils was 491 years. So, you can scratch, maybe according to that study at least, can maybe kind of scratch off from your, apocalypse bingo card, get it off there because you might not get it. So, according to this paper by Dr. Evans, the 50 harvest claim is a dramatic oversimplification of the state of the topsoil crisis. But don't let these findings lull you into a sense of complacency, Josh. Don't get complacent. Imagine if 16% of the world's conventional farmlands became unusable. Like I said, in the study, there were 3 different soil management classifications: conservation, conventional, and bare. Which management type do you think had the shortest lifespan? There's conservation, conventional, and bare. So I think bare.
Bare.
Yeah. See, nailed it. Star student, Josh.
Yeah.
If you've been paying attention to the conversation thus far, it should be fairly obvious that bare topsoils are going to have the highest rates of erosion. They've got no roots or plant life holding the soil together, so with any amount of disturbance, they're going to just slough off. Like, if you've ever driven through the Texas Panhandle or a similar area, you will have seen the endless horizon of bare topsoil just, baking in the sun. And also, it's really windy out there, so, blowing away.
Dust bowl.
Yeah, literally the Dust Bowl. It's practices like that will accelerate global topsoil loss. Nature, generally, does not like to expose its naked skin to the elements without some plant roots or mycorrhizal networks and leaf litter to keep her decent. She's a lady. When searching for ways to manage soil sustainably, looking to nature is always the best place to start. Also, I definitely was making strong statements earlier about the negative effects of tilling, but no-till agriculture is far from a cure-all from our topsoil troubles. A conventional farm that has adopted no-till practices will still be tied to the merciless exigencies of the market of capitalism. And so farmers will be forced to prioritize crop yield over soil health, kind of like what we were saying earlier. A downside of no-till agriculture is that it can lead to a greater incidence of weeds. Weeds are a social construct, but, weeds, which can drive a farmer to increase their herbicide use, thereby replacing one ecologically damaging practice for another. This gets at one of the very core tensions of our entire civilizational structure, is that we inhabit a natural living world. And that natural living world requires holistic stewardship of our life support systems. But we also are subject to an economic system that manufactures scarcity and precarity and demands growth at all costs, thereby forcing us to forsake the ecological necessities of natural resource management in pursuit of short-term gains. But dude, look on the bright side. At least this whole system that we've created is actively destroying the planet.
Yeah, I mean, at least that.
Yeah,
it's good.
Because if it wasn't, then what would we even be doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd get bored.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, would there be no spice to life?
Yeah.
If we didn't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
So, what is to be done about all this? This podcast is called the Power First Podcast, right? So, what is to be done about this? Power First. And we seek to embody and explore that ethos, a little more every episode. So, I'm going to throw it to you, Josh. What does it mean to live in a way that you put your own power first, and that power exists at all levels? And how can we apply that thinking to the topsoil crisis?
Yeah, I think taking power first is a good name because it basically shows me every day that when I wake up, there's a decision tree that I have the ability to go down. And yeah, so for me to take power every single day is to actually just create what I want to see. Literally. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of apathy and not knowing what to do. If you have any dirt to work with and a shovel, you can do some stuff for sure. Mm-hmm. You can skip your shitty job and decide to suffer instead of for that dollar, but for something that's going to pay off later. And maybe that little bit of monetary scarcity will actually be good in the long run, because then you can have some asymmetrical exits of your of your value. You can increase your value exponentially in a different direction rather than participating in an economy that asymmetrically decreases your value and the surrounding soil and area around.
Sound like a business guy right now.
Yeah.
It's all about the asymmetrical value increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, so short of that, other ways to use your power to build topsoil. the more.
I don't know. Did I not say anything?
No, you're good. You're good. Just these are just some kind of conventionally floated ways to bridge the gap. All of these different things existing in tension. Farmers usually operating on really low margins, having to meet the demands of the market while also not trying to destroy the soil, not trying to be ecologically destructive, while combining all those things living in tension. Some people, this is a very controversial one, but there are people that are into the idea of GMOs, creating genetically engineering crops that yield more. Kind of, back to what you're saying in the beginning about Monsanto and all them. Also, I just made a video related to Monsanto. You should totally go watch it on the YouTube channel. Check it out. Anyways, as climate change changes the atmosphere and everything, and I suspect these companies that already have these huge R&D departments and everything will probably start to breed plants that remain nutritious despite changing atmospheric conditions. But of course, they'll also be probably drowned in glyphosate and IP of those companies, so you can't grow them yourself. Obviously, there's a more efficient uses of cropland that could be done. If you want to send me off on a spiral, just drive me by a sod field. That is like just the height of stupidity, in my opinion. Like literally growing sod to cut it up to take somewhere else and then just transplant that already ecologically cancerous ideology of the lawn onto somebody's front yard where there was probably flowers growing before or a tree, God forbid, and then boom. So, stop doing that. That would be a great place to start, in my opinion. Kind of like what you're saying earlier, like cover crops, things that are deliberately, part of the system, like a more holistic soil management process. But obviously, back to farmers, a lot of the times they can't even afford to do that. So there, in my opinion, does need to be like government support for these programs. And then there's also the regenerative agriculture movement, which, RFK Jr. saying that, you've probably seen these headlines about there being some like regenerative agriculture programs or something that they're starting. I don't know very much about that. I think it will probably be a later episode of this podcast or on the YouTube channel. Stay tuned, like and subscribe and shit. But yeah, because, their regenerative agriculture, like I just went to a rally in Washington, D.C. and talked to a bunch of Maha people, and regenerative agriculture is like on the lips of all those people, like they want it. But, like what exactly does that mean? It's obviously like kind of the whole thing we're talking here. Media narratives are always so much less complicated than actual realities, especially when it comes to something as crazy and convoluted as our national agriculture system. So, the adoption of regenerative agricultural practices is something that I'm really interested in and plan to explore further in the future. But, yeah.
So, if there are things that anyone can do to take their own power into their own hands, I believe it's growing more of our own food.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, most people don't do it because they feel as if that it's futile. They're not going to be able to grow as much. And some people have like little gardens and things like that right next to their lawn. But I think if people can understand hydrology and soil biology at all, they're going to know more about what a farmer goes through to get them their food, even if they are not a farmer. And then more people can become um, contributors to the society and start to, again, money not spent is money earned. Maybe you take a day off work and you just allocate some time to go help somebody on their land that you then share crop with. It's going to improve your lifestyle, mental health. It's going to take you and your kids and your family outside. And then we're going to learn a lot more about weather patterns and what really is happening instead of listening to media outlets. Literally, people should just put their hands in dirt more often and that is going to change the mentality about agriculture, food, climate.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're returning home, you know,
Yeah. Yep.
whence we came, and
Yep.
there we shall return, you know.
Yep.
So, as a final point, this whole story tells us some interesting things about, you know, media narratives, kind of like we were just touching on. I don't know about you, but when I hear stories or see headlines about an environmental issue that poses famine and mass death, which I can do, you know, essentially nothing about as an individual, I tend to kind of shut down and tune out whatever the story is, maybe dissociate a little bit. I'm the type of person that, you know, has a deep interest in things like this, you know, environmental issues, stories, and it's just like reacting in that way, dissociating when you hear these things is just a form of, you know, kind of psychological insulation from the horrors of the world. You know, it's like it's a very natural, very common thing for people to act like that. You know, it's like one of the big reasons why dealing with climate change is so difficult, because it's, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, but obviously it's like it's really abstract. It's getting to the point now where people can see it more. Where in Colorado, everyone's freaked out about it, like, oh, it didn't snow this year. It's like, oh, I wonder why. We've been talking about this for only 40 plus years, but anyways. But then once you kind of internalize that as real, it is really common to, oh my God, like, and then you enter the doom spiral and you feel hopeless, and it's not what we're here to. It's not what we're here to do. In fact, I would argue that this is the exact strategy of leaning on catastrophizing narratives to try and motivate people into action that has caused the broader environmental movement to be so ineffective in recent decades. You know, it's like if you tell everyone like, oh, you know, you're just freaking out all the time, then you just live in a mode of constant crisis and you're freaking out. It works in a lot of ways, and obviously like there's a balance to be struck, but just speaking in these grand catastrophizing terms at all times, even though it feels true, and even though it feels like you're saying the truth, which you know you probably are a lot of the time. I mean, not necessarily in this case, obviously. You know, it was more complicated than that, but it can feel paradigmatically true, which, you know, arguably it is. But then the media narrative of it it doesn't necessarily inspire one to feel like there's much that can be done about it. In this phase of the 21st century, our minds are a soup of short form content, clickbait headlines, half-baked conspiracy theories, and when sweeping and unnuanced nightmare declarations are made about complex global food systems, they tend to either fall on deaf ears, cause doomerism and despair, or be discounted as conspiracy or woke propaganda, right? It's the whole thing that happened with climate change. It's why we are now careening into a world of over 2 degrees Celsius global average temperatures, because we just the market rules everything for decades, and that's the course that we remain on. And of course, these are well-meaning narratives, kind of like we were saying. Like, even though if it feels true, and it feels like you have to hair on fire about it, that's not necessarily going to motivate more people to act. And the people pushing these narratives see that urgency as the best way to convey their message. But in realms that are as vulnerable to counter propaganda as, you know, climate things, environmental things, people are so primed. It's becoming less of a thing now because it's harder to deny. But in the past, people were so primed just to be like, like,
It's intangible.
yeah, it's intangible, and it's also because we're such social animals, you know, nobody wants to be the guy at the party that's like, oh, this is all bad, everything we're doing is bad, everybody stop. Everyone's gonna be like, fuck that guy, like, we're having a great time, you know? Even though he was right and literally the boat is going off the waterfall, they just wanted to have a good time. So, like, there's a lot of human psychology in it, you know, too. And there's so many scenarios where if you wanted to sit around and be like the climate change guy, you would be the most annoying person in the room. Like, oh, you're gonna drive to my house? Like, think about the emissions. And the way that our lives are structured, they're so fossil fuel is everything. Like, we are a fossil fuel driven society. There are civilizations now, like China, that are detransitioning from that, and, you know, thankfully, I guess, spearheading the global transition away from fossil fuels. Here in the United States, we are fossil fuel maximalists, basically. And so, yeah, like, just existing in that level of consciousness and trying to live in integrity with it, and also is just constant tension and, in my opinion, moral injury, because you are physically incapable of existing in the world in a way that doesn't feel destructive and degenerative, unless you just, like, live in a hole, which, like, more power to if you're trying to live in a hole. But So this brings me to my grand point. When you're thinking about environmental messaging, because my mission with starting this project and everything is to convert radical ecological consciousness into real political power, but also daily power in your life, feeling more empowered over the direction of your own life. The rewilding starts in your mind, and then you can impose that on the world. I think you've, via heavy doses of mushrooms, have probably experienced this. But when we're talking about environmental messaging, it needs to be accessible in conception and in solution. Solutions need to be on a human timescale. Do your best not to make it sound like it's just like woke nonsense. Don't let it just be immediately, oh, that's just some like woke propaganda or whatever. So that's another lesson of it. It needs to be pointed out, and stressed, as we've been doing throughout the course of this conversation, that economic exigencies, so like the demands of the market, bar action. So therefore, the market is not the solution to these problems, despite everything that everyone will tell you about the market being a solution to everything. That ideology is one of the most destructive of all time, in my opinion. And so, yeah, economic exigencies, they keep people from doing what they need to do, and we need to help them. And also, the conditions in which our topsoil is eroding, thousands of years of topsoil erode in 100 years, are counter to, our broader concept of human flourishing, which is where people live normal, happy, healthy lives. So the soil crisis is real and will only get worse unless we start shifting agricultural practices to view these delicate natural resources as the living ecologies that they are. So learn to think like a mushroom, Josh. I'm sure you got that down pat, I'm sure.
Got it.
And live, power first, baby. How you feel?
Yeah, man. That's about it. Think like a mushroom. Use your noggin. Use your heart. Even though that sounds really cheesy and it's super wokeable. Really, I think we're endowed with the intuition. We're just bombarded with intellectual nonsense all the time. I think thinking about everything is a really good thing to do, but then acting from a place of like a gut feeling is the best thing to do. If you hate your job, figure it out.
Quit.
Don't do that. Just don't do that. It's not worth it. We're going to be in the dirt. So, and then we'll probably all have much better lives if more people act like that. Yeah. You'll find people much happier and truer and maybe a little bit poorer, but probably not that much poorer. Maybe we'll all be richer if everybody just fucking quits their shitty ass job.
Stop buying dumb bullshit.
Yeah.
Also, that's a big one.
Stop buying dumb bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's my top piece of financial advice to anybody.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well,
Yeah.
Josh, thanks for your time.
Yeah, man.
What is that? What you got? Was that your product to plug there?
Oh yeah, so this is Fallen Oak Mycologies.
Yeah.
This is my mushroom company's
Mushroom company.
lion's mane extract. It's a alcohol-free 20-1, although the ratios really don't matter. This is kind of a industry jargon, but it's a very, very strong extract that definitely allows you to use your brain, like think like a mushroom. I take it every day, and it's really good. Yeah.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fallen Oak Mycology. Check it out.
Yep.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks. All right. See ya.
Well, you made it through the whole thing. I love you. You're the coolest person that I'm aware of. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned. This is just the beginning of my project. I really hope that you stick around. Power first, baby. Let's go.